Sam Major, Commercial Director for Krome Technologies. We're very fortunate to be joined by our CEO, Rupert Mills.
Hi, Sam.
Our Exchange Subject Matter Expert, Gregor Jus.
Hi, Sam.
And our Technical Director, Ben Randall.
Hi, Sam.
So we're here to talk about some exciting news with Microsoft Exchange, and especially around the hybrid model. And given that I'm surrounded by people that know far more than I do about this subject, I think it's probably best that I just chuck the technical hot potato to whoever wants to grab it first.
Sure. I'll start, because then I can leave you guys to do the really technical bit. So the interesting bit is that Microsoft have announced finally that you can remove the last Exchange server from your hybrid environment. That's been a topic of conversation for years and years, since people doing Office 365 migrations in 2013, 2016, all the way up. There's been this conversation of what do we do with this last Exchange server, and you've had to keep it there to administer your environment. What they've now done is finally allowed you to remove that. They've built a tool that you can install on a standalone machine, allows you to remove the final Exchange server and use PowerShell to administer your Exchange environment going forwards, or your Office 365 environment going forwards. And that is a big step forward to people trying to retire things out of their estate they don't need, which is, there's some considerations, and that's where I'll let these guys step in nicely, but it's, there's a lot of things that, a lot of people that have been trying to get rid of that last Exchange server for a while. So, I mean, perhaps Gregor, you can talk us through some of the considerations that you'd have, because I know things like what you're doing for SMTP relay, that sort of stuff is a big challenge, and the fact that you don't just uninstall it, right?
Yes, so the most important bit is that the emphasis on the word remove it, not uninstall it. Unfortunately, despite all the promises, you still can't just go into add new programs, take it out and go on with your life, because you might live without your job at the end. So Microsoft did update their Exchange 2019 only version in a way that you can use the management tool only now to keep your hybrid running, but get rid of your Exchange, whether it's physical, whether it's virtual, it can be in Azure, it doesn't matter. You can shut it down and you can then gracefully, slowly remove it out of your environment by cleaning your hybrid things behind with Microsoft help. They created some scripts, they wrote the whole documentation how to do it properly, but unfortunately it's still not a solution for everyone. So there are some caveats, there are some things behind you have to consider before you just go with it, because you might end up with some serious problems at the end.
Yeah. So I understand that if you just go and uninstall that final Exchange server, now you're thinking, great, Microsoft's allowing us to do it. It'll basically disconnect the hybrid and you'll end up with orphaned mailbox in O365 and nothing works anymore. So
yes, that at least. So uninstalling Exchange, it doesn't just remove your hybrid, it also goes into your AD, removes all your Exchange attributes, so pretty much everything that's related to it, from your aliases, email addresses, global address list, everything that's syncing to the cloud, everything that's Exchange related, gone. And it's not so easy at getting it back at the end. So yeah, the things you have to consider before going into that scenario, whether if it's appropriate to you or not. There are like 3 or 4 major things you have to consider. One, obviously, is the relays. Nowadays, we still have like thousands and thousands of companies using those Exchange servers, or the last Exchange server, for some third-party applications, sending emails through Exchange, marketing communications, printers or some other devices.
there's a lot of legacy apps, isn't it? Because most of the modern
Yes,
stuff will link
yes.
up to O365.
Yes, so that's one of the main things that might push you back a little bit. Obviously, Microsoft did introduce a few different solutions to that you can utilize 365 environment. It's not fully there yet, it's not for everyone. We can talk about limitations and that experience a bit later. The other, perhaps, let's say annoying or problematic thing for engineers is if they're not used to deal with PowerShell.
Yep.
If you go into scenario of removing the last Exchange, you will end up with the ability to manage your hybrid environment, the whole rich experience on premises and in the cloud through one single tool, but it's going to be PowerShell.
Yeah.
So all those still sticking to GUI and nice interfaces, that's gone. But on the other side, I mean, PowerShell is the future, so you will have to go with it sooner or later.
Is it worth discussing the reasons that you might end up in a hybrid exchange? Because there's not just that migration. If you to end up in hybrid in the first place, obviously you had an exchange on-prem,
Yep.
and you're talking about going to exchange online. Is it worth looking at the options that you might have had when you at that stage when you decided you were going to do that migration? Because there's not just hybrid, is there? And how does this
Yeah.
affect when the other, or if there's staged and cutover migration
Yeah.
methods? What's the implications for that? And so on?
So we have 3-4 different methods of migrating to Exchange Online. Which one you use, I'd say historically based on what kind of environment you have, what do you use, and what's your
Kind of the scale that you're talking about,
yes,
number of users.
and what would you like to do in the future? So if you, let's start with the simple one. If you are using Google Mail or some other mail software, you can then just use the IMAP migration, go to Office 365, and that's pretty much it. Although the issue you will see with it, only email data is migrated, no calendars, no tasks, no contacts.
Yeah.
If you have been using Exchange in the past, you have 3 options you can use or you could use. So we have cutover migration, staged migration, and hybrid.
Okay.
The staged one, the name implies something else. So
I've always found this one confusing myself, in fairness. Yeah.
it's not a staged migration, it's a kind of legacy hybrid way of migration, which is used for Exchange 2003 and 2007.
Okay.
All
So
of
that's going to be a very small subset of
Yes, so hopefully
and
don't
someone's
have
done it a
users.
long time ago.
Yes.
But not so much now.
The other one is cutover. The name implies literally the cutover. You go into Exchange, you take everything you have, and you just chuck it into 365.
Right. And so that would take quite a long time. So it's not really suitable for a large number of users because you're going to be offline for the duration. Is that right?
No, not necessarily.
No?
So the cutover migration works in a way when you initiate it, the synchronization is going behind the scene. Users don't even know anything's happening.
Okay.
They still use their on-premises mailboxes, they send and receive emails, and the migration is just syncing behind into 365.
Right.
When it's done, for the next 60 or 90 days, I think, every 24 hours, there's an incremental sync happening, so that you can decide what's the most appropriate time for you to cut
Okay.
it.
So that's there's that cutover, which is a
Yes.
defined
Yes.
moment. So you could do that in your maintenance window.
Yes, most likely that would be a weekend, so that users can get ready. They don't use that mailboxes at the time. There are some issues. I mean, I'd say some drawbacks with this scenario. When you migrate, when you use cutover migration, all those mailboxes from on-premises to the cloud, those users needs to be created in the cloud by the process.
Okay.
Which means that if those users on premises already have accounts in the cloud for some other reasons, using Teams, using SharePoint and OneDrive, they have to be deleted first.
Right.
Oh, well.
So that wouldn't work well with something like Directory Sync or Azure AD Connect.
No, so if you have Azure AD Sync or Azure AD Connect service, which is the new name now, you have to stop it. You can leave it installed if you want, but you have to stop the sync process. You have to clean the Office 365 tenant so that users don't exist there, and then you can initiate the migration,
Okay.
the cutover.
And if you do that cutover, it's all well and good, but if you had anything that relied on the legacy services for Exchange on-prem, that's going to stop working at the point you cut over because Exchange goes, right?
So Exchange still remains on your on-premise at that time.
Okay.
It's not decommissioned yet, it's not removed. You just start the process of moving all mailboxes in the cloud. In theory, you can still then manually create connectors in the cloud and connect Exchange on-premise for some kind of mail flow, if you have some mail relays and so on.
Okay, so you can still do that even in a cutover
You can still
migration
do that, yes. It's not a hybrid, it's a manual solution, nothing else.
Yeah.
But you can. Before we go in the last one, the hybrid one, it's worth mentioning the cutover. The hard limit is 2,000 users.
Okay.
Although a funny number, 150, is the number that Microsoft recommends to not go
Yeah.
above.
Right.
Sorry, is that
Organisations.
you're saying cut off? In my mind, that's like we turn everyone off here and everyone on there, or are you talking about a bigger environment, you do that in blocks of 150 or no more than 2,000.
No, so with the cutover, there's no blocks.
Right, okay. It is literally all or nothing.
Yes, you initiate migrations from Exchange Online,
Mm-hmm.
which connects to your Exchange on premises using using Outlook Anywhere technology,
Mm-hmm.
and it just takes out all the mailboxes that exist, put them into a batch for migration, and that's it.
Okay.
You don't have any ability to say this group and that group
Yeah,
or this
different
batch. It just
OUs, all that
all
sort of
or
stuff. Wow, okay.
It's designed for smaller businesses, basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And if you are planning or if you are not planning to use Exchange at the end at all anymore. So
Yeah.
if you just want to go fully Office 365, forget about Exchange and that's it. The third version is hybrid, which I'd say is most likely widely used, not just because of the size of companies, but I would say it's also because administrators were a bit afraid of what that cloud brings to them. Because with the hybrid, you always have an option. If you go online, you can also go back.
Yeah.
If you
You
migrate,
can pick and choose
Yes.
the mailboxes you're going to do,
Yes.
and you can exist
yes,
indefinitely in that hybrid with some on-prem, some in the cloud, can't you? Yeah.
it gives you an option to slowly migrate. So let's start with our technical director. He's the most brilliant, the most smart one, and let's try him and be a rabbit to test the whole Exchange online. If it's fine, you can continue with next batch and so on. If something's wrong, you can always just migrate them back to on-premises and
Is that why we moved you first when we did us?
yes,
Yeah.
pretty much yes.
Most brilliant, smartest, yes.
Also, hybrid is widely used just because it's the most feature-rich experience users can get. It's the only solution that will give your environments on premises and online. It will connect them into one single environment.
So like your free busy and all that sort of thing.
That's correct. So FreeBusy calendar
Coexists.
informations go through, mail tips go through. You can use Microsoft Teams. It gives you also an option for users to remain on premises and just utilize online archiving in the cloud. You have global address listing, so pretty much it creates one single environment with a single
Right.
point, single access of managing it.
Yeah.
And it's also the only way for some companies who are highly regulated or have some compliance requirements to have data on premise to remain on premise. Because obviously Microsoft still doesn't have data center in each country.
Yeah. Or alternatively, people where they are geographically in an area where they get very poor internet connection, they can
Yes,
still use
that's correct.
an
Yes.
on-premise Exchange server.
Yeah.
So what you're basically saying is hybrid gives you the most options
Yep.
and the most different things you can do with it. But historically, when you've done with the hybrid in a company that's got good internet connection and doesn't have compliance restrictions, etc., you're still stuck with that last Exchange server, or were.
Yes. So the reason behind is not fully known why. Microsoft was promising for years that they will find a way how to get rid of the last Exchange server. I think that every
Kind
year
of
we
kicked
got
it down the road. Well, we'll work it out next year.
Yeah,
sort of
so
thing.
I still remember one of the conferences I've been to Microsoft, and there was a guy on the podium. He was like clapping and explaining, and yes, Microsoft did it. At the end of this year, we can get rid of Exchange. It's like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But
Of course, the last version of Exchange has been in the pipeline
yes,
for a while, hasn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
2016 was the last, 2019 is the last, was the last. Now the VNext is announced.
There's another one coming.
So, but yeah, if you return back to Exchange, we finally now have an option to remove it. As we said, there are some things you have to consider if you're using SMTP relay, if you're using, we didn't mention role-based access control.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll back.
And if you're using those and some auditing, if auditing is required for your administrators, what do they do on premises? That's gone too. Obviously, you need to have all mailboxes in the cloud. But if you have all this ready, if your company is ready to go online, you have an option now. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting here. That's not necessarily an option for everyone, even though lots of people have been looking forward
Yep.
to getting rid of that Exchange server. But there's also some other good news is that they changed the pricing. The the last hybrid traditionally in up to 2016, the last
Yep.
hybrid server was free, wasn't it, for that
Yes.
management use only?
Yes.
But I believe that's changed for 2019 now, hasn't it?
It is, yeah. So initially Microsoft promised or confirmed that 2016 is the last Exchange server that will have free hybrid license, just because they were planning to retire Exchange with 2019 version and they wanted you to force to go online. Obviously that's not the case just yet, and with Exchange 2016 already went into extended support, which ends in 2025.
Okay.
They decided with the latest Exchange 2019 CU12 update that they will give you a hybrid license for free for Exchange 2019
Okay,
as well.
so that alone is good news, because you might have a somebody who's on 2019 and think, oh, we're going to have to keep paying for this,
Yes.
and but we want to get rid of it, and they've taken some of the energy out of that requirement.
Yes.
Really.
Well, I think that's at least a part of the reason why Microsoft decided to do that is also, if we take a look at the last year, or the last half year, with all the issues and security bugs that came out,
Yes.
and Hatfield and so on, users didn't want to upgrade Exchange just because they would have to pay for it if they stuck with the hybrid version and Exchange. And another issue is with the amount of CU updates quarterly released, plus all the security updates and patches and critical updates and security updates, all those Exchange servers lagged behind.
Yes.
Um,
Keeping up with those updates is quite.
It is.
It's not so trivial with an Exchange server. It's such it's quite a, I won't say fragile, but a very particular system. You need to test things carefully. It affects a lot of users if you take things offline.
Well, especially if you imagine having organizations with 20, 30 Exchange servers, and quarterly, every 3 months, getting the new CU update that you would have to test and whether it's all working or not, and then you install it on, I don't know, all 20 servers, and then after a week you find out, oh, there's a bug, like it did happen with one of CU updates, and you have to revert it or call Microsoft for help. So I think that users stopped, administrators stopped with those updates, and the cost of going to Exchange 2019 was also too high, so they just lagged behind. And I'd say that's one of the reasons why Microsoft decided, let's give you 2019 for free as well. And with that, Microsoft also changed the servicing model. So there's no more quarterly updates. It will now be biannual, every 6 months,
Okay.
which should help with more regular updates and hopefully keeping Exchange a bit more patched up than it was in the past.
I guess the security is another reason why you'd remove that final Exchange server, because then if there's any security holes in Exchange, hopefully not going forwards, but it's one of those things. Then if you haven't got an Exchange server, then there's not going to be a security hole in it, basically.
True. If you have Exchange, I mean, you obviously have some options to secure it by disabling OAuth, disabling ECP, and so on. But at the end, it's still one of the most complex systems, one of the most complex applications ever written and rewritten and redesigned and so on. And no matter how much you try to protect it and secure it, there's always be a hole somewhere. Someone will find it. And yes, the ability now to remove it and just use the management tool, nothing else, which doesn't even have to be installed on server now anymore. It just can be a domain joint workstation. It gives you quite a bit of...
And presumably that tool can be installed on multiple team members' machines. It's not like limited to one install per site or anything like that.
No. So you can install it on pretty much every administrator's machine if you want it. If you have a large environment to manage, or you can just have a server where all administrators connect to it and just use the management tools on it.
So kind of jump box with your management tools on it.
Yes, can be a jump box,
Big step forward.
Yeah.
Sounds like it. Really sounds like it. I mean, just thinking from my perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously this push to get things off-premise into the cloud and so on, Microsoft to push from 2016 to 2019 and further. Do you think that are they pushing to have everything kind of in Azure in the cloud? Not just Exchange, I guess, en masse. They all seem to be pushing towards that model. They're trying to push Exchange forward as we don't necessarily have to do it just now, and obviously there's reasons you mentioned, you can't necessarily, because of geographical reasons and so on, but comms is getting cheaper,
Yeah.
Do you think the future will just simply be, look, it's just all there and we all plug into it?
There's a lot of people building their environments now. If you take it a step further in Exchange and look at Active Directory, there's a lot of people building their environments on Azure AD and not necessarily using an on-prem AD.
Yeah.
If you have stuff to administer on-prem, then you can do both now. And from that perspective, that whole thing of actually in a modern connected world, if you have good connectivity, you can build your whole infrastructure, your whole environment in the cloud, so to speak. But there are a lot of legacy environments out there that don't do that. And I think what Microsoft are realizing is that although they want to drive people in that direction, and it makes total sense to drive people in that direction, there'll always be the outlying cases.
Yeah.
And I guess until the R&D costs for an on-prem exchange outweigh the amount of money they can bring in for those outlying cases, there'll always be an outlying a case for it. So I think businesses are evolving. Connectivity, as you said, is evolving.
Yeah.
I mean, people are putting satellites up now to give connectivity everywhere in the world. It's all those sorts of things that are going to change how it all pans out. So we don't know what the future holds in that respect.
Yeah.
But certainly right now, there's those various outlying cases that mean you need to be able to cater for them. But certainly, what you're saying about everything being in the cloud, it's where they're going.
Yeah. Okay. This last question to you all, probably specific to you, Greg, let's be honest. Clearly, you obviously know a lot about the subject. We've done an awful lot of this for our customers. The standard sort of approach that we take with customers, look, we've done a lot of these. Customers will be doing it for their first and only time, as it were. What are the, and I'll do this to everyone, like your top three or that sort of stuff. But the main gotchas that you think, before you do anything, you've got to consider this, this, and this, kind of that sort of ilk.
Right, so we did mention, obviously the main issue is if you have some applications, devices using your Exchange, you have to think of those. But we also mentioned that Office, or let's say Microsoft now gives you an option to start using SMTP Relay in the cloud. They have 3 options. Not every option is useful for everyone. The most secure one, obviously, is the most challenging one. It's pretty much SMTP authentication, which means that you can set up your device, application, or something to authenticate against your Office 365 and then send email wherever you have to send it. It gives you an option to send email internally and externally, but on the other side, I said it's the most secure one and the most challenging one. Microsoft introduced security defaults, they said. Those security defaults secure and implement some security features in the cloud, in Azure AD, to try to protect you, your environment, your users, your company, and themselves at the end, by using multi-factor authentication, by locking down their Exchange environment, and so on and so on. On the other side, it means that not every application or device is ready for that just yet. So if you have those security defaults, you won't be able to just use your 10 years old multifunction printer. Let's start sending emails through.
So I'm sure there's some obvious ones that you guys would know when you're looking at things like multi-function print devices, etc. But how do we ascertain in an environment what is good or isn't? A kind of red listed as what will or won't work. Is there I'm assuming there's a utility that just does it all for us, all right? Or is
No.
how do we approach that?
A lot of it is looking at the logs, basically, so you can start migrating things away and moving things away, and then you can look at the logs and see which traffic is still flowing through your Exchange servers. And you start to pick it away, and ultimately end up with less and less flowing through your Exchange
Still
servers.
very manual, quite laborious.
Unfortunately, yes. In an ideal world, a company would have a list of all devices and IPs and so on, so you would just take it, we have this, and you would move it. In reality, that's not the case. Sometimes it takes weeks to go through all the logs to find all the devices and applications sending emails. And even after that, when you shut down your Exchange for, let's say, 2, 3, 4 weeks before you decommission it, someone from behind will come and say, my application doesn't work anymore. So emails stopped sending from my machine. So
you need to give it at least a month then, in that case, to allow that sort of normal business cycle to go through.
Month-end accounting cycle, we email out all our invoices at the end of the month. Oh look, the account system doesn't send email anymore.
That could be a problem.
But on the other side, if that SMTP relay isn't working for you, if you want to have environment secured, you still have an option of a couple of different relays Microsoft is trying to give you. One is direct send, which is great, but it's limited only to your internal recipients. You can't use direct send if you want to use some marketing emails to your clients. And the third option, it's also called SMTP relay, but using connectors in the cloud, which means that you specifically set up your Exchange Online with a connector that allows your applications, your devices to connect to your Exchange Online and send emails through. This one can be challenging, especially because you have to have a static IP for those devices. You can also use TLS certificate for the authentication. The main problem with that relay is that your emails are subject to anti-spam of the Microsoft.
Yep.
Okay.
So you don't have any authority over that. If you use that relay, Microsoft will check those emails if they
Be
are.
careful what you're sending.
Yes. So if Microsoft decides that those emails are spam and your IP ends up on the list, you will end up with hours and days of possible issues before they will remove you.
Troublesome for marketing departments.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that might be one of the greatest issues why you still might want to keep your Exchange on premises. Although Microsoft is evolving and those relays are getting better and better. In the past, for example, they gave you like 1,000 messages per day a limit. Now it's 10,000 messages, so it's just growing and growing, so it's getting better. So eventually it will evolve to a stage that we will go fully to the cloud and forget about Exchange.
Yeah.
Cool.
One day.
One day.
One day.
One day.
There'll be plenty of other challenges around though, don't worry.
Yes.
So-
Yes. Yes.
It won't stop evolving. So I guess, kind of in summary, and thank you, Greg, it's been fantastically informative. We will discuss this. It's all about the kind of proper planning, the analysis. It sounds like there's an awful lot of kind of manual stuff. There's no magic utility that can do it all for us. So takeaways will be, again, as we always do, plan it properly.
Yep.
Kind of measure twice, cut once, all that sort of good
Definitely in
stuff.
this particular situation.
Absolutely, and work with a reputable partner that knows what they're doing.
Yep.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. It's been fantastic. Thank you for joining us for the first time, Greg. I'm sure we'll
Thank you
have
for having
back.
me.
More than welcome. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
And thank you for joining us on this episode of Krome Cast. Check it out. If there's anything you'd like us to cover on future episodes, then please leave that in the comment section below. Don't like, subscribe, and share. And join us again next time on Krome Cast. Check it out.